Remember, in the course of discussing movies, the host will spoil plots. You've been warned. Listen to their screams. Greetings, ghouls and creeps, and welcome to Listen to Their Screams, a horror podcast that feels like you're talking to friends. And I am one of your friends, Dave, and we're joined as always by our other friend, Ike. Ike, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain. No quick quip this week. Wasn't fast enough to think of anything.
That's all right. Can't always be on.
That's right.
Even though we are just a little bit in kind of the entertainment thing here, and it's kind of expected. That's okay. We're it's all good. We'll just keep it nice and level and boring. No big deal.
That's right. That's the story of my life. I'm kidding.
It'll pick up. It'll pick up. We'll find our footing here. This week we're reviewing Talk to Me, which is out in theaters now. Ike and I both went and saw that. We'll be talking about it later in the show. Before then, we have lots of things to discuss and talk about. First of all, before we dive in, special thanks to the wives, Kayla and Monica. And I've been saying it for the last 2 weeks, but it's official. Next week, they will be back with a wise rebuttal. It's set up, established. We have a pretty good idea of what's going to be discussed, and we're ready. We're going to put on the gloves and maybe throw off the gloves and have at it next week with a wives rebuttal. But this week, Ike, what you been up to? Watch anything good? Do anything fun? How's life been going?
Yeah, absolutely. I've watched a lot of stuff, actually. So just to start us off from the top, like you said, we watched Talk to Me in theaters. I actually saw 2 movies this week. Went and saw Talk to Me on Sunday, and then on Tuesday, actually was me and my wife's anniversary, so we decided to go watch Haunted Mansion because she really wanted to go watch it. And Haunted Mansion was really good. It was really it was funny. Not as good as the the Eddie Murphy one from like 2002 or whatever, but definitely a worthwhile watch, especially if you have younger kids. It's a good way to get your kids exposed to horror without it being too scary. And then, of course, we'll talk about this later, but I watched a wonderful movie called Death Metal. It's on Tubi. It's also on video on demand, which me and Dave both got signed Blu-ray copies of, which is pretty badass.
Special thanks to them for sending that to us. We gave them a shout out on social media.
Oh, hell yeah, rock and roll.
We're gonna review that next week.
We sure are.
We had an opening, it timed out right, and so we will. We're gonna throw them a review next week and see what they think.
Hell yeah. And then I watched another movie on Tubi. I've actually heard about this movie. It's kind of been on my radar. I just never had a chance to watch it. It's a film called Hard Candy.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's more in line with like a crime thriller than it is like a strict horror movie. But thriller, in my opinion, is horror light, or diet horror, if you will. So I included it, but it has Elliot Page, and then of course the wonderful Patrick Wilson. Really great movie. I really was not expecting the movie. What I got was not what I was expecting at all. Super good. It's on Tubi. It's for free. So if you haven't checked it out, it is good. I will throw like the small trigger warning because it does talk about sexual abuse of children. So it is a bit of a heavy movie. So I just want to throw that out there that maybe don't watch it if that might be potentially triggering to you. I also started watching Walking Dead Dead City on AMC Plus.
Oh yeah,
it's the Negan and Maggie show. I'm about 3 episodes in, I think. It's pretty solid. I like Negan a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like this is kind of getting more back to the roots and origins of like Negan from the comic books, because I feel like they kind of had to water him down a little bit for the TV. But and last but certainly not least, not a movie or a TV show, but recently the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. We've talked a lot about the movie coming out, but obviously Five Nights at Freddy's is a video game first and foremost. So Five Nights at Freddy's has a video game that came out, I believe, last year called Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. And Security Breach recently had a DLC, which is downloadable content. extra content, if you will, called Ruin. So I've been watching Markiplier, which is a very popular YouTuber, play Ruin just because I'm too lazy to play it myself. So watching them on YouTube. So good stuff. Really cool game. Really interesting concept. It just made me more excited for the movie in October.
Yeah. I haven't watched a lot actually. I've been kind of busy and haven't got to watch as much. I watched a few of the movies on my list I've been working through. I watched a few other things. I have 2 episodes of the Dead City to watch that we haven't watched yet, and a couple other things that actually kind of came out that we like to watch. We watched the show Heels that was on Stars with Stephen Amell, the wrestling show. It's about independent wrestling.
Yeah.
Thing. So the second season of that is either it came out or the first episode or 2 or whatever came out. I'm not sure which, but we haven't watched that yet. But I got to watch that. So that's about it. I've just not had not as much free time in the last week. It feels like, and haven't watched as much. So I mean, I've still watched Supernatural and Simpsons because there's always time for those two. And but yeah, a few other things I've been looking to watch. Like you mentioned video games. I've been wanting to watch what's that called Twisted Metal, that series.
Yeah.
That's out. Been wanting to watch that. I haven't got to that yet. So I got so many things I want to watch now. But haven't got a chance to. So
It's always how it goes. It's always how it goes.
yeah, there's always something to watch, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. You know, if you ran out, then what would you do? Or you do what I would do. You just rewatch the same things over and over. There's so much to rewatch, but yet I end up watching the same shows or movies. Seems like the majority of the time because I love them so much. It's like I just can't not watch them. I can't have them not be a part of my life. So. But okay, so moving on from that, we have our rotating segment for the week, and on this episode, we are going to do Horror Hot Take. That's right, it is Ike's favorite segment, Horror Hot Take. It is where one of us, so far it's been all Ike because I guess I've just not felt very opinionated, provides what could be a horror hot take, a hot take on a horror topic or subject or movie or etc. Of course, I'm sure there's probably always people that agree with it. You're never going to 100%, stun everybody. But Ike, are you queued up and ready for this round's horror hot take?
Yeah, I think I got one. Might ruffle some feathers this time.
All right, well, lay it on us. Let's hear it.
All right. So, a little bit of preface here. Everybody knows and loves the movies, Us, Get Out, and Nope.
Uh-huh.
Those 3 movies have one singular thing in common. Dave, you want to take a guess of what that thing in common is?
Jordan Peele.
That's right, Jordan Peele. In my opinion, Jordan Peele is 2 things. 1, he is one of the best directors of modern horror in this current generation. That's number 1. Number 2, and possibly the hot take that's going to come out, Jordan Peele is one of the most overhated people as a creator, as a director, as an actor in some cases. But he's one of the most overhated people, and I would say a good 90% of the time the reason he is hated is not because he's not a good director. It's not because he doesn't make good movies. It's because the movies he makes talk about real life issues. The movies he makes talk about and very prominently star people from communities of color. And people specifically don't like those movies, I feel, because of that fact. Not necessarily that they don't like black people or something like that. But I feel like a lot of people watch these movies and perhaps they feel underrepresented maybe, or perhaps they feel as if the content is too progressive potentially. But I feel like the people who truly hate these movies can provide good critiques of the movies, and some good critiques of the movies, in my opinion, could be potentially pacing. Some of his films have a little hard time pacing. Nope had some rough pacing at parts. I think Get Out is nearly a flawless film, so I can't even really comment on Get Out. Us had a small part, I would say, towards the end when they started kind of, starting to approach the big reveal where the pacing was a little shoddy. But outside of that, it was a perfectly good movie. So there are some legitimate criticisms of Jordan Peele and his movies. I don't really know much about Jordan Peele personally as a human being, so maybe there are some things about him specifically that can be potentially critiqued. But his movies alone are overly hated because of what they represent. And I feel like it's time that we understand that as a whole. It's okay not to like the movies. I'm not saying you have to love them. But if you're going to go out of your way to hate these movies, most likely it's for the reasons that I've mentioned. So potentially a horror hot take and potentially going to ruffle some feathers. But I've never been one to shy away from pissing people off. You can ask Dave. I'm sure he's been subject to that many a time. But Dave, what do you think about the ramblings of a madman here?
Well, I agree with parts. I definitely feel that Jordan Peele is a divisive creator. It feels like people either really like him or really don't. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of gray area. His movies are successful, so there's clearly something's going right. Right? He's clearly doing something right. All of his movies are successful. I love his movies, and I think you hit on it more. And I'm not trying to shy away from anything or any hot button, but I really think probably the majority of it stems from his movies do have some deep context to them, and they do hit on some social issues and different things. They don't beat you in the face, but it's clearly there. And if you don't capture that or don't grasp that, I don't think the movie works as well. And so maybe, and I'm not saying this to belittle anybody, but maybe if they don't grasp some of that social commentary, that maybe the movie does come across maybe as not as good as it is. And so if you're not really getting it all, maybe it is. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there, right? There are always people out there with hate in their heart, and that choose things based on that, whether they purposely do it, whether they subconsciously do it, whatever it may be. I do feel, at least from my experience, and of course I'm a white male, so that's I can't speak too much to it. I feel that horror is a much more accepting, inclusive genre than a lot. Both for people of races, ethnic thing, as John, or excuse me, what am I trying to say? I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. Why I'm shooting?
Basically, it's inclusive. It's not just.
It's inclusive.
Yeah, it's inclusive. Yeah.
Overall, I think what I wanted to say was like of sexual identity, I'm not sure orientation. That's the word I was. For some reason, I could not think of that word. I have seen from what I've seen, and again, I don't include. I'm not in any of those groups. So that people that are in those groups may be seeing something different. But I just feel like I feel like there's always been some of that there. I feel like there has always been a little representation. Maybe not over the top, but I feel like it's better than a lot. So I mean, I'm sure there is some of that. I do think. I mean, his movies, they're not your typical, shallow. And again, I don't mean this to put anything down because these are some of my favorite movies, but you're not some of your typical shallow slasher type movies, right? Where it's all about bloods, guts, and breasts. That's where a lot of slashers are. So I don't think I think some people just don't like. I think some people don't like movies with messages, movies with subcontext, movies with meaning. And I think some people truly do not like that involved in horror, even though maybe unknowing to these people, horror has always had social commentary in it. Always. I mean, always. As far back as you can run horror, there are examples and cases to be made that horror has always had a social stance and has always expressed itself, just like science fiction has too, because when it's not mainstream accepted to have those things, to speak those things in certain times, horror and science fiction could hide those messages within the context of their genre.
Right.
And I mean, it's like Star Trek having the first television interracial kiss, but because one of them was an alien, it got by, right? They were able to get it on there, push it through. So, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think I think you're onto something. I think I lean a little more towards I think it's the the context of the movies maybe goes over some people's heads, or some people don't like that in a movie. There are a lot of mean, hateful people, so I'm sure there are people out there who do, side with that, but and don't like Jordan Peele and his movies because of that. And those people, if that's how you're choosing your movie, you're an asshole. And I don't, whether the movies are good, bad, or indifferent, if that's your basis for choosing what you watch or consume or listen to, you're just a dick. So that's not cool. But so there you have it. There's Ike's horror hot take. We'd like to hear some feedback on what people think of that, and just some general feedback. Hey, what do you think of Jordan Peele? Just outside of all that, in his movies, do you like? Are you a fan or not? Like I said, I think his movies are for whatever reason they are divisive. People either love them or hate them. Like I said, personally, I like his movies, and I think they deserve all the accolades and praise they get and success they have. So.
Right. And just to add, because I don't want people to think like I'm over here like, trying to like lick on Jordan Peele's, left nut or something. But like, I'm not going to say that all of his films are masterpieces. Like I said, I think I think Get Out is nearly a flawless film. But, I definitely feel that his movies, if I had to rank them, it's literally going to be Get Out, Us, Nope. So all of his movies are good to some respect. All of them are not masterpieces. Get Out is a masterpiece. I will forever die on that hill. I don't care who you are. Get Out's a good movie. But, like I said, I know that not all of his movies are perfect. You know what I mean? They all are deserving of some critiquing. I think just to maybe hone in just a little bit, because I think what you said was very true, is that the reason for the critiquing most times, like you said, I think is because people, A, don't understand the message, or they don't understand the meaning, or they don't want to, or don't like that there's message or meaning. And sometimes that can be because of prejudice, or perhaps they don't care for that in their horror films. But like you said, though, horror films, historically an inclusive genre for the most part, But sorry, I don't want to continue rambling. But I think you said it best, though. I think it's about the message. Jordan Peele does include some very deep imagery and messagery within his films that are very, they're very relevant to the times, and I feel like a lot of people don't like that. And I think that that's really important in any movie, that there be some, deeper message. There obviously is, it's fine to have those, surface level movies, but I think it's important that as a creative art form, that there is some meaning, even if that meaning is just, to enjoy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like I said, horror has always had a lot of social. And I'm not even saying. Don't get me wrong. I love horror. I am not saying at all that horror has been the epitome and shining star of inclusivity and social context and social responsibility, and has been all, rainbows and puppies, because that is not true. There are some truly sexist, racist, homophobic things that have been in horror out there over the years. So I'm not saying that it's perfect or flawless. I'm just saying there have been some examples of socially responsible movies, or socially progressive views in horror movies. And again, it's because, it's, like Romero slipping in, some critiques on commercialism and things. It's because you can put those things in that context, and it's not like it's someone up there, giving you a lecture on that social issue. It fits in, and they can tie it in and use a lot of symbolism, or, and things like that to get that across. So, but it's been there. It's always been there. So, I mean, you can go back to some of the old monster movies, the Universal movies, and there was there was indications of characters, with that were homosexual in them. And I mean, James Whale, who was one of the biggest directors of the time, did Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, was a homosexual. So it was there, and they found ways to sometimes portray some of those things when it was taboo. Um, because again, a lot of people don't like that, in there, and whether for whatever reason. And I'm not condemning someone who doesn't like that in their movies. I'm not saying that they're bad people because they don't like that, or they're belong to any hate groups or whatever. I'm just saying, for various reasons, some people just don't want any kind of heavy message in their movies.
Right.
And they just want some mindless entertainment, which is that's fine. That is fine. And some of my favorite movies are absolutely mindless entertainment. So, all right, well, let's put a bow on that horror hot take, and hopefully we get some feedback online and see what people think. For right now, let's take a break, and when we come back, we will come back with news, birthdays, anniversaries, and upcoming releases. Make sure you subscribe to Listen to Their Screams on your favorite podcast platform. Also, make sure you look us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok, and Slasher. All you have to do is look up Listen to Screams. That is Listen, the number 2 in Screams, and you can find us there. Also, make sure you go and buy yourself a Listen to Their Screams t-shirt. You can find all of our shirts at tinyurl.com/Screams Shirts.
And we are back. All right. Starting us off the top here, we have the news. Spread the news. Spread the news. Spread the news. We have the first Saw X trailer has been released. It will be in theaters September 29th. We talked about it a little bit last week, but the Saw date was moved up to not coincide as the same weekend of Five Nights at Freddy's. I think that was an incredibly good idea. Saw X, of course, as we know it, this is going to take place between the first and second film. And from what we can tell, this is going to be a very rudimentary Jigsaw, taking his frustrations out on some scammers who tried to cure cancer with basically just stealing from him. So, yeah, it's a good time. They definitely chose the wrong motherfucker to mess with, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's clearly not a spoiler because it shows it in the trailer that what's her name? Amanda? Is that her name, Amanda? That she's back. She was at the end of the trailer under the one mask. She took it off, and that was her. So again, they're not not spoiling. That's not a spoiler because they put it out there. So that's pretty wild to put that kind of reveal in the first trailer. Really, so it's pretty crazy. So, but it looks good. Looks fun.
Yeah, I'm super excited. It's gonna be good. All right. And then it is being reported now that Radio Silence, if I'm reading correctly, will not be directing Scream 7. And it was a rumor at first, but it has been confirmed that Christopher Landon from Happy Death Day and Freaky is going to be directing Scream 7. Now, Happy Death Day and Freaky are both comedy horror movies. So not to say that I'm concerned, because obviously, they're not specifically just comedies. They are horror movies. And I'm sure he's done other stuff too that I'm just not aware of. So I think that, I'll, manage expectations, and just hopefully it turns out well. What do you think, Dave?
I don't know. I'm worried about this. Now, the stance that Radio Silence was not returning for the next one, I was okay with that because I thought, I don't feel like they have quite done what I would like to have done with these Scream movies. So I was kind of excited that there was going to be somebody else at the helm. I'm not sure this would have been the choice I would have made. And the direction I would go, but who knows, right? Let's be honest. There is a little bit of satirical humor with Ghostface. There has always been some of that in Scream. There's always been some of that. So maybe he can utilize that, keep it in check, keep it within the realms of what has been in Scream, and direct a good movie, put together a good movie, because there's always been some humor in the Scream movies, and so so it's not like he will have to completely abandon that vein. So
Right.
maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll click and work. Who knows?
Fingers crossed. But obviously, as soon as that comes out, we will 100% be reviewing it. But my anticipation that it will be probably not next year or the year after. With the strikes that are currently going on, which we thoroughly support here to, listen to their screams, it'll probably be delayed for a little while. But
Yep,
that's
probably.
a small price to pay. Small price to pay. With that in mind, we also have Insidious: The Red Door being now available on video on demand. Honestly, that's a very, very fast turnaround. I'm constantly amazed at the very fast turnaround for video on demand. I think that's probably one of the best things that came out of COVID. Is that basically movies, as soon as they're out of theaters, they're on streaming somehow, and I think that's probably the best thing for them. Traditionally they would wait, weeks between, sometimes even months between the release of a film before we put on streaming in some shape or form. And it was just unfortunate because there were a lot of movies that maybe I couldn't catch that I was like, man, I really like to watch it, but I gotta wait until they come out on DVD or someone gets it on Netflix or some shit. So very cool. So if you haven't watched it yet, it is on video on demand.
Yeah, they've developed this system because Insidious Red Door is still in theaters in many places. It's still in the theaters here.
Oh, really?
And but they've developed this system that on the tail end of their theatrical run, they're putting them on video on demand as a cinema at home type thing, right? Where you can now see a movie in the theater in your home, and they charge a little bit more, like $5 to $10 more than the normal purchase price for that early, what they're calling early, early access. And then once it's down fully from the theaters, it typically then comes back down to their normal price. And then it kind of maybe will even come down a little more, settle in a little more once it gets released onto a normal streaming platform. So they've found a way to tier it so that I feel like they're trying to get the most profit, squeeze the most profit they can out of it, right? They're having the theatrical run before that's completely done and it's completely out of people's mind. Oh, look, you can catch it at home and you'll pay a little more, but some people pay for that convenience. And then when it's done in the theater, it's like, okay, well, you still can get it at home, and now it's a little cheaper. And now it's on a streaming service, but you can still buy it, but it's just a little cheaper. So they've kind of tiered it, and I think it's working for them, and I think because everybody's doing it now, and I like it. I have been known, I have purchased a movie or two at that cinema at home rate that I didn't catch in a theater that I didn't want to wait for. They've sucked me in and hooked me on some of them, and then, so I like it. I think it's smart business.
Yeah, absolutely. Very smart business. With that in mind, I think that's all for our news, but we have some upcoming birthdays. August 3rd, 1950, we have John Landis, who directed An American Werewolf in London. I have heard, but I've actually never seen American Werewolf in London, but I know it's a classic.
It's a great movie.
So I'll have to check that out sometime, but I'm sure, Dave, you love that movie and you love John Landis, I'm sure.
I do. I love American Werewolf in London. Yes, you really need to watch it. You need to watch that. You need to watch Silence of the Lambs. You got to get these watched. These are classics.
Yes, absolutely. I need to watch Silence of the Lambs. Actually, literally the other day I saw an article on my Facebook that was talking about Silence of the Lambs. I'm like, it's calling out to me. It's calling out to me. August 5th, 1935, which is not the same year, but it's the same day as a certain host of Listen to Their Screams. I wonder
Sure
who
is.
That is.
The old guy.
But you share a birthday with John Saxon from Nightmare on Elm Street, Nancy's dad, and from Black Christmas, which is pretty cool. John Saxon is a pretty cool fellow.
Yeah, I like John Saxon. Yeah, he's pretty cool. He's also in. I think he's in a couple of other Nightmares. But I don't know if he's in it or if it's flashback stuff. But he is definitely a New Nightmare where he plays himself.
Yeah.
So
he's also in Nightmare 3, isn't he? Because that's where they're in the insane asylum, right? Where's that 4? Okay, 3. Cool. Very cool. And then another. Wow. Speaking of great birthdays, August 6th, 1970, M. Night Shyamalan. I hope I'm always been curious. Is it Shyamalan? Is that the right pronunciation?
I think so, but I'm not the best to ask about the pronunciation.
But obviously, people who know M. Night Shyamalan, but he's made some all right movies. The Sixth Sense, Signs, Knock at the Cabin Door, or whatever. Just a couple lightweight movies. It's not a big deal. No, I'm just kidding. I love M. Night Shyamalan. Yeah.
Yeah, we've obviously been tooting the horn of Knock at the Cabin Door this year.
Yes.
It's one of the better movies of the year. So
Yeah, I bet that'll probably make my top 10 if I had to guess, but I guess we'll wait until the end of the year to see.
yep.
And then August 7th, 1960, David Duchovny from The X-Files. Love David Duchovny. Obviously, he's in a lot of good stuff. I believe he's in that HBO show Californication, which I hear is good. Never seen it though. But yeah, X-Files. I would say that X-Files is probably, while it's not my first, it was probably one of the first like horror-related TV shows I ever watched. And I remember there was an episode where a guy, he was like a monster. He had like black eyes and like really sharp teeth. I can't remember which episode it is, but he's like eating people. But like I distinctly remember that. It's like burned in my memory.
Such a good show. I love X-Files.
Yes, absolutely. And then speaking of Saw, August 7, 1942, we have the wonderful Tobin Bell. Tobin Bell is, I mean, fantastic. Obviously, he's been in a lot of stuff. He's a very long-running career actor. But he has specifically made a lot of fame and movement because of the Saw series. And of course, they have him returning for Saw X, which I'm super excited for. Tobin Bell is my favorite part of Saw. And while I like the latter Saw movies, the early Saw movies, Spiral, were always my favorites.
Yeah, the first one, it blew my mind when the first one was out, and the first time I watched it. It's one of those things that I did not see coming, that ending. It just blew my mind.
Absolutely. I remember I had watched the movie before, and I took my wife to a Halloween showing. It was like the 20th anniversary or something, or the 15th or something anniversary, maybe even 10th. But they showed it in theaters, and she had never seen it before, and she was blown away by that ending. And I always say Saw has the best unexpected ending for people who have never seen it. So I love it. Speaking of X-Files, August 9th, 1968, we have Gillian Anderson from the X-Files. Scully and Mulder have a birthday 2 days apart, which is crazy.
Pretty wild. Had it been if they, I don't know if they've been, I don't know if they've been filming in August. I'm assuming they would have. It had to be fun times on the set when their birthdays are right there together.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then before we move on to movie anniversaries, I did want to slide in just real quick another August birthday, but also a recently departed person who is not a horror actor, but I think we need to mention him. The wonderful Paul Reubens. He actually passed away about a week ago. Not even a week ago, 3 or 4 days ago, actually. He had been battling cancer for 6 years. But I just want to throw it out there. Paul Reubens is most known for Pee Wee Herman, of course. But he's been in plenty of other stuff. He's a fantastic voice actor as well. But just want to throw it out there. Rest in peace to him, and our thoughts are with his family, of course.
Yeah, and he's a genius, right? His comedy and what he did with Pee Wee Herman was game changing stuff. I mean, he was so huge, and he was everywhere, right? It is a iconic character that he created, and it's weird because when he first did it, right, he was doing it as doing a stand up thing, and it was a little lewder, a little more adult, and then he toned it down obviously when it kind of kept was being directed towards kids, but he started doing it for stand up and then doing appearances on Letterman. A lot of appearances there. He made an appearance on Mork and Mindy. He did, I think, on The Dating Game. I mean, and all these were under the name Pee Wee Herman, as he was kind of ironing out and developing this character. And then the stand-up stuff ended up with a special on HBO where it was a little more like the Pee Wee we know. Getting there, he developed some of the catchphrases and things. And then that kind of, when that was huge and spun out and everything was rolling, that's when he got the offer to do the kids show, and I mean Pee Wee's Playhouse was just monumental.
Yeah, absolutely. He was definitely a little bit before my time, I think, in terms of like his peak, like with Pee Wee's Playhouse and whatnot. But obviously everybody knows Pee Wee Herman, so obviously I had to include him.
Yep.
But a couple of upcoming anniversaries for some movies, some solid ones. We have from August 5th, 1988. We have The Blob, which is, if I remember correctly, that's a remake of like a movie from the 50s, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a remake, but it's a solid remake.
Yeah, absolutely. I have actually seen this Blob. I weirdly enough, I remember seeing it on TV at my grandma's house like 15, 16, 17 years ago, probably. But I remember specifically seeing this movie on TV because it was in color. If I remember correctly, the original is not in color.
Yep, right.
Very good, very good. And then actually on the same day, just a short 10 years later, we have Halloween H2O. Dave and I have talked about Halloween. We've talked about Halloween H2O. Halloween H2O is probably one of the more solid remakes, not remakes, but like sequel type movies that we've seen that kind of retcon some of the middle movies. But H2O, fantastic movie. I love it.
Me too. I still think it's. I don't know. I don't think it gets the respect it deserves. I mean, it's just.
No,
I don't.
not
You
at
don't.
all.
I don't think it gets a lot of bashing per se or whatever. Because you have a resurrection thing that people end up when they want to bash, they end up honing in on that. But it's like it just gets forgotten, right? You just don't. I don't know. I don't feel like it gets talked about enough. I think it's. I love it. I think it's a great movie.
Hey, listen, I will defend H2O, but I will also defend Halloween Resurrection. I will defend Buster Rhymes until my last living breath.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, you hear a lot of hate, when people are hating on one of the Halloween, that one gets mentioned a lot, but
it does.
I mean, you're just like, I don't know, you don't hear discussions about H2O. One way or another, it just seems like it's just, not talked about. It's like people talk about the early movies and then the whole Thorn thing, and then they talk about, the remakes and the later stuff. It just feels like I think it gets kind of lost in the discussion, a lot, and I don't know. I love it. I think it's a great movie. I think Jamie Lee does a great job in it. And I don't know. I enjoy it. I think it's solid.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It'd be cool to like do like a little sit down and have like a full conversation about just that movie sometime. I don't know how well that would
Well,
do. I don't know if people would be interested, but
this fall, now just don't forget, this fall is the 45th anniversary of the first Halloween
ooh,
movie. So we will be having a Halloween episode where we discuss all the Halloween movies and do our ranking, one of our franchise episodes. So, when that comes up in the ranking, we can discuss it.
and this will be our de facto ranking because we have all of the up to date Halloween movies now. Because when we did our last ranking, it was without Halloween Ends. Is that the
Oh, I
right
don't.
one?
Yeah. I don't think we did a ranking though.
No. Did we not? Was that
No.
before we did rankings?
Yeah, that we did not do a Halloween franchise episode. I don't believe. I could be wrong, but I do not believe that we did a Halloween franchise episode before Ends. I think we just covered Ends.
I
I
think you're
think
right.
so. I think this is the first time, if I've looked back correctly. We've done Nightmare. We've done Child's Play. We've done Insidious. I don't know. That might be it. And then we'll be doing a Saw one.
As I say, we'll be doing Saw, probably a Conjuring one with the Nun 2 coming out.
Maybe maybe a country. And then we'll be doing the Halloween one this fall for the 45th anniversary. Now I could be wrong. I didn't look this up. I wasn't prepared for this, but I don't believe we've done one.
I think you're right. I don't remember ranking them now that you say that. I feel like I remember all the other ones, but I don't remember this one. So, obviously, if anybody in the comments, if anybody's like a very significant listener, and they're like, hey, you guys are crazy, just let us know. But yeah, I don't think we can rank them at all. That's right. It's weird. It's weird how that works.
No, we did not do a franchise episode. I'm looking now. We did Halloween Ends, a review, and then that's all. We have a Halloween special episode, but that was not for Halloween the movie franchise. That's when we discussed for the
Halloween specials.
Yeah, for the holiday we discussed the Halloween the TV specials. No, we've done Scream, and we have done Child's Play franchise. We have done I'm scrolling through here. We've done the Gremlins, which was kind of a short one. Nightmare on Elm Street, and then we did the Insidious. That's all the franchise episodes. So no, that'll be our first foray. So anyway, point being, we'll have a chance to really talk about H2O when we do our ranking.
Damn straight. All right. And then lastly, we have a upcoming anniversary of The Sixth Sense on August 6th, 1999. Very good movie. Another great twist that I did not see coming the first time I watched that movie.
Yeah, it does. It's another one of those movies that if you don't see it coming, it blows your mind at the end.
Absolutely. And then we have two upcoming releases, one at home and one in theaters. If you're wanting to go to the theater this weekend to get your horror taste, you can go see Meg 2, The Trench, releasing in theaters on August 4th. pardon me, Dave and I are not, we're not going to diss any movies, right? And we definitely don't shy away from aquatic animal related horror movies. We like Jaws. Lake Placid's a good one. Sharknado, of course.
Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Creature from the Black Lagoon, yeah. Piranha. All those are great movies. But the Meg doesn't necessarily stick out to me as a particularly scary aquatic horror movie. I like the Meg. I don't hate Jason Statham. But I'm not going to go out of my way to watch this movie, probably when it comes on streaming. But hey, if you guys are into that, it's all you.
Yeah, it leans a little more action to me. I mean, it definitely has, a monster in it, so it kind of fits in the monster movie creature feature type thing, in a way. And it a lot of monster movies, that's all they were, right? They were just more actiony type movies, and it's okay. Just not my cup of tea. We can't cover everything, so we'll do a pass on the Meg 2.
It's weird because I just have to add one thing. I was watching it. I actually went to the theaters and I saw a trailer for Meg 2. And like in the trailer, like they were pulling some Jurassic Park shit because Jason Statham was talking about how he like trained a megalodon. So I was almost like, this is almost funny enough to be like, let me just watch this just because I want to make fun of it. But I don't want to do that because I don't want to be mean to people. But at the same time, when it does come out, I probably will make fun of it a little bit. So, in any case, that's what's in theaters this weekend. Also, there's plenty of other stuff if you don't want to watch what potentially might be a hot piece of garbage. Who knows? But there's plenty of other stuff you don't watch. Insidious, Talk to Me. Lots of other good stuff. Barbie. And then on Screambox, so we have a little bit of a streaming horror movie for you here. So if you don't want to leave the house, you want to sit on your couch, you want to eat potato chips and call for pizza, you can watch The Ghastly Brothers. It's now available on Screambox. It is a Dutch supernatural comedy where Lilith is sent to a boarding school where she meets the Ghastly Brothers, a pair of strange ghost hunters. Together, they need to rid the school of the demons who have made it their home. So if you don't want to go anywhere, check that out. I'll probably check it out too because I love Screambox.
Yeah. It sounds fun. I've heard people describe it as a kind of a Ghostbusters meets Beetlejuice type deal, so that sounds fun. I think it's kind of heavy on the comedy, but that's okay, right? That's good. I'll probably at some point I'll give it a watch and we'll see what it's like.
Yeah, I mean we watched and reviewed a movie called Holy Shit, so obviously it's nothing's above us or below us for that matter.
Yeah, we watched Thanksgiving.
True. That's borderline cutting it though. Let me be real there. But in any case, we've gone over all the news. We talked about what we've done this week, so there's only one thing left. But before we get to that one thing left, make sure you follow and subscribe on social media, all that good shit. We post about this new stuff all the time, new trailers, when stuff comes out. We throw it on that Facebook, lickety split. We're faster than Jimmy John's. So now that we got that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and move on to our review this week of Talk to Me.
Listen to Their Screams is now a Fangoria collaborator. Get 20% off your order at shop.fangoria.com by using the promo code LISTEN2SCREAMS at checkout. That is listen, the number 2, and screams. Or you can click the link in the show notes. All right, and we are back here on Listen to Their Screams. And it is review time, main event time. The undercard's done. We're ready to lay it out there. This is our review of Talk to Me, which is out in theaters now. It is. Here's some names. We talked about me butchering names. It's my turn to butcher some names. It is written by Danny Philpott. I'm not sure how you say that. Philpott. And Bill Heinzman. And it's based on a concept by Daley Pearson. It is directed by Danny and Michael Philpott, starring Sophie Wilde, Alexandra Jensen, and Joe Bird. It is distributed by A24. And the movie grossed $10,431,720 on its opening weekend, which was good for 6th place. That's not bad. Not bad. And we, like I said, we went in theaters and saw it. I was excited for this, right? Because I've heard some talk about it, and people that I respect their opinion, right? A lot of times when they post stuff online, and I typically kind of fall in line with them, and they really enjoyed it. So I thought, I think I'm going to like it too. And I have to say, just to give an overview, this movie was even more enjoyable than I expected. I thought it was just a fun movie. I thought it was a clever concept, and I cannot praise enough the cast. These these people for being, I'm not going to say they're unknowns because I'm sure they've done things, but this is not like what we would call a megastar cast. These are young actors on the rise, and they were all extraordinary, top to bottom. Even the minor characters, I did not see a flaw in the cast. I thought they all did a great job. I have to say, Sophie Wilde in that lead role was exceptional. She is so talented, and added a whole layer to this movie. But I love the concept, right? There's lots of times you have movies like this that are semi-possession-y type movies, or people that are mediums that can see the other side and see spirits and ghosts. But this is pretty cool that it was supposedly the hand of a medium that was encased in this plaster, and it was all written on and everything else. But then when you touch it and said the phrase, you could see, and it turned into this almost like a party trick, right? A party game, and I think this is fresh because it's what would happen, right? You get a lot of people that would get this and would try it, and if nothing, it all went cool, and there was this rush and this feeling. That's what people would start doing, right? It would start being this thing that people would get together, they would drink and have a good time and be doing this. And I thought, man, the two people that had the hand at first, and started not at the very beginning, but started it with these people. I thought they were great.
Yeah.
They the way just the way they were kind of dancing and moving, and it was literally like it felt so real, right? It was like their excitement and enthusiasm, and in these situations, it felt right. It felt exactly how it should feel, and I thought it was wild. The way they acted when they were possessed, they would see people and see these ghosts or whatever they were, and then the one that was masquerading, I would say, as her mom, because her mom had died a couple years before, from what she believed was an accidental overdose of sleeping pills, and her dad then told her that there was a letter and that she had legitimately committed suicide. But this ghost that was portraying her mom was telling her, "No, I didn't. It was an accident. He's lying. He's making this up." Um, it was just pretty wicked, right? It was like these spirits or whatever were just toying with these people just because they could. And then when they got in the hold of the one young guy, Riley, and they wouldn't let him go, and that's where it really became, the wheels fell off, right? And things started really getting wild, because he was that whole scene of him just ramming his head against things. I mean, it made me cringe. It was very, very intense, and it was pretty wild. So, Ike, what'd you think of the movie?
Yeah. I mean, you said a lot of stuff that I definitely agree with. I will first and foremost say, as an overall statement of this movie, I loved it. Now, one thing that I thought was funny, and I'm just gonna say this right at the get go, um, it's obviously an Australian movie, and I
Yeah,
didn't realize how much of an Australian movie it was. Like, shit was straight up filmed, I'm pretty sure, in Australia. Everybody in that
yeah,
movie, I'm pretty sure, is Australian, which is fine. Obviously, I watch a lot of movies that are probably filmed in America or in North America, at the very least, America, Canada, and all the people are North American. Well, it's very weird, because when you watch a movie where they're not speaking the same way you speak, there's a little bit of a learning curve. So
yeah.
for the first 10 minutes of the movie, I really had to get used to hearing the Aussie
The accent.
the accent, yeah.
Yeah,
And I have no problem doing that. In real life, I work for a call center, so I talk to a lot of people from a lot of different cultures. So I'm very good at honing in on accents and understanding them. But I'm not gonna lie, there was times where they would say stuff. I'm like, what the fuck did they just say? I look over at my wife and she'd be like, oh, they just said this or whatever. I'm like, okay, cool. But that's just me. I was just having a good time, so I was being all silly goose in the theater and whatnot. So
yeah. I had the
um,
exact same feeling when it started, and it was going, and I knew it was Australian and everything, and I thought, oh man, their accents are heavy, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh no, this is, man, I hope this is not going to be tough, because I'm having a little trouble here, making out, and then it's like I don't know when it happened, but it's just like it got to a point, and it's like I didn't even notice it anymore.
Yeah.
It just like, I don't know, whatever. I became accustomed to it or what happened, and I was fine. So yeah, I think it threw me for a loop because I think us as pretentious Americans, we're so used to everybody making movies and then putting on the American accent and pretending they're in America and filming it like they're in America, and that's what they want to do. I mean, when you have half the cast of The Walking Dead who are British and they're coming over here trying to do Southern Georgia accents and stuff, and it's wild. And I think sometimes we get caught up in that, right? Let's be real. As a country, sometimes we're a little pretentious, think the world centers around us, and so we get used. It takes us aback sometimes when, hey, this movie wasn't made in America, and it wasn't made for Americans, but it was so good that it made it worldwide. But
Right.
it's an Australian film, so
Yeah, absolutely. But you're 100% correct. Like it was definitely that like wow, like you don't really realize until you watch these movies that wow, there are people who make movies that aren't in America and they don't have American accents, and it's crazy. It's just it's a very cool experience too, just overall because the film is obviously great. Like you said, every single person in that film, excellent actors, 100% amazing. Every person, even to the background characters. One of the things I noticed first and foremost in the very beginning of the film, obviously everybody knows spoiler warnings, you know the rules, but at the very beginning of the film, you start out with they're trying to find this guy. He's been acting weird. There's a party going on in his house. They get to his house, they kick in the door or whatever. He's like emaciated. He's got scars on his back and shit. And they pull him out and they're like, he's acting all weird. He stabs somebody and then stabs himself in the face. So obviously, a lot of times in these movies, you see like a guy walking around with a knife, and the background actors or the supposed civilians or whatever, they're just kind of like watching him. Like in my opinion, if I see a guy with a knife, I'm getting the fuck out of Dodge. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna
yeah,
stick around and see what this guy's gonna do with a knife. And wouldn't you believe it? Rather than everybody standing around watching him, they all left.
yeah,
Go figure. You know what I mean? That's a rational reaction. You know what I mean? Like let's get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And so first and foremost, great. Background actors are doing exactly what they should be doing. They're doing fantastic. Everybody in that film deserves a raise.
yeah.
But
That opening. Let's talk about that just for a moment
yeah,
here. The opening was intense. It was great. Not what I expected, right? Because I knew there was something to do with this hand thing and whatever. I had a little bit of an idea what was going on, and I thought, what is this? And everything. And then I love the way they shot it, where it was like following the guy. It's like you're going through the crowd with him of all
yeah,
these people, and he's frantic because it's his brother, and he's trying to find him, and it's just very intense. And there's a lot of sensory stuff, right? Because there's the lights and the music and the people and the franticness of him. And then when he finds his brother, and you think, God, what happened to him? And what is going on here? And then though, when he finds him, and he's helping him out, you really think, okay, they're gonna play into this movie, right? They're gonna play in this movie. They're laying the foundation. He found him. Okay, cool. And then it's like all of a sudden the stabbing happens. Like, what the hell? It's like I did not expect that. And then he stabbed his brother, and I thought, oh man, that was wild. What the hell? And then it's like he stabbed himself in the head. I was like, what? It's like one right after another. They threw me for a loop there, and it really got me. And then the brother that he stabbed initially, he survives because he
yeah,
comes back into the movie later. But the one guy, what is Duck? Was it Ducker,
yeah,
something like that?
yeah. Duddy or Ducky or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that. Like it's something weird. I'm sure it's Australian.
yeah. But you find out later in the movie that he had been experiencing the hand thing, and it kind of like what it does to Riley later. He didn't let go of him, and
Right.
it drove him to this. So
Absolutely. And I remember when he stabbed himself in the face, I remember leaning over to my wife and I'm like, I really didn't have kitchen knife lobotomy on my bingo card for this movie. Um,
yeah,
but like you said, it was just so shocking. Like I was really expecting him to stab somebody else, and then, oh no, he's stabbing himself in the eye. It's fine. That's cool. But no, absolutely great opening to a movie. Cold open. It did exactly what it needed to do. It got you on the edge of your seat. It hooked you. That's what the beginning of the movie should do. It should get you into the action. It should get you interested in the movie, and that's what this did. And this movie is not lacking story at all. I mean, literally, as the movie progresses, as you get along in this movie, it's a really good story. I mean, I can't really think of any significant loopholes that the story had. You know what I mean? The story, very clearly is about this hand. This hand has an unknown origin, which I would love to see, like an origin story of the hand, of course. Um,
yeah. I thought to myself, after watching this movie, I thought this movie perfectly could set up a complete like universe.
Yeah.
They could do virtually anything they want with this object, this hand. They don't even have to have the same characters, the same settings. They could pretty much do whatever they want centered around the journey and existence of this hand. And ultimately, it would be great if ultimately I would love some kind of story of whose hand it is.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I think that would be wild. And I hope there is more. I hope there is more in this series. I hope they do some other stuff and explore some other things.
Yeah. Honestly, I think with how successful this has been, like relatively, I think A24, if they were smart, they would definitely do more with it. And I think they are. I think A24 knows. I mean, take this for what you will. A24 knows a cash cow when they see it. Uh,
Yeah.
that's why A24 they're making the X movie, they made the Pearl movie. That's why they're making the Maxine movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They know money when they see it, and this movie is cash money. And I think they can do a lot of really good stuff with it. But even beyond that, I mean, great story. Like you said, has an ambiguous history of the hand. The hand has those mystical powers. You know, they kind of have a story for how where the hand came from. They have rules for how the hand is used. And it's very neat and it's tied up and it's in a bow. Except for when everything goes to shit. You know what I mean? And the main character immediately, they start seeing shit outside of touching the hand. And like you said, it's kind of like a game. It's like a party game. Somebody touch the hand, let a ghost possess you, just see what happens. And one specific thing that I did want to note about the movie is that the scene where the kid is bashing his head into the table is probably single-handedly one of the best scenes in a horror movie this year. I mean, it is a raw moment of like absolute fear, like, and it's realistic. I mean, the first time he does it, everyone's like, "Holy shit, what is he doing?" Like they're all frozen, like they're frozen in fear. And then he starts doing it more, and it's like it just felt like a very human reaction, and it felt very realistic that if somebody started doing this in front of you, how would you react?
Yeah.
And so he starts bashing his head, and then they finally like snap to reality. They grab trying to get the hand out of his hand, and then the spirit just throws him across the room, and he starts doing it again. And it's just, his possession, in my opinion, is probably one of the best things about this movie because, he's bashing his head into the table. You know what I mean? He has very realistic looking damage. He tries to pull his eye out of his skull, which is just absolutely
that was wicked. Yeah.
Oh, like it gave me chills. You know what I mean? Like I'm watching this guy pull his eye out of his head, and like they're trying to stop him, and then at the end he goes to hit his head one more time, but the girl throws her hand in the way to like block him.
Yeah, his sister. Yeah.
Right, which and honestly, I think that was probably one of the greater. There was more character development in that 15-minute scene because at first they're like talking about how much they hate each other, and then she does something very selfless in an attempt to try and preserve him. So it literally is like this really unique and very complex character development in literally 15 minutes, and it's just so good. And obviously the ending, the ending, and again, spoiler, this has obviously been spoiler filled up to this point. If you are still here and you didn't want spoilers, you kind of, that ship sailed. But, at the very end, the main character thinks the only way to get rid of this is to kill the kid, right?
Yeah.
And obviously we know as the viewer that's not the solution. That's not going to save anything. And at the very end, she kind of has like a last minute change of heart, and then rather than killing the kid, kills herself. Now, I have read some speculation about this that one of two things happened. Either she realized that the spirit that was acting as her mother was not actually her mother, or she wanted to be with her mother, so she jumped. So there is some speculation as to her motivation for jumping in front of the car. Whether it was to basically be with her mom or to basically she knew that she was the one that needed to die to stop it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is some speculation about her motivation behind it, but nevertheless, I didn't expect her to do that. Honestly, I was expecting the kid to die, if I'm going to be real. Just how the movie had progressed up to that point, I really thought they were just going to kill the kid. I thought they were just going to push him out in traffic and be like, all right, bye.
Yeah, and then they leave it kind of ambiguous there, where if she died or what happened. Although she got hit by a car, and then you're like, oh, she's up walking. That seems a little odd. But then you end up realizing, and it comes to the closing scene where she's sitting there at the table, or sitting there as one of the spirits that someone playing the game is seeing
Yeah.
at the very end. So that's pretty cool. That's a pretty good loop. And I love how there's so much the character development is just so rich in all this, right? With the struggles with her and losing her mom, and the dad struggling with losing his wife, and how it's affecting their relationship. That there's the single mom of the two kids, and how she's doing her best, but the kids are rebellious, and there's all that, that struggles of a single mom household, and what's going on there. And there's all these, the characters are very, very rich in this, and you really relate to them and connect with them. And but I like how they don't try to over explain or oversaturate the explanation of all this and what's going on. Right? It's pretty simple, right? There's a hand of a medium, it's encased in plaster, you do this, you can see things. We're not going to tell you the why, the how, where it all came from right now. We're not going to give you everything, uh, all this, so to speak, because we don't need to make this movie work. And and I like that, right? Because I don't feel like they tried to shove too much into the movie. For the majority of the movie, you kind of feel like, well, the hand's the villain, right? This medium component, and then you kind of feel like the spirit portraying the mom then is kind of the villain, right? Because it's toying with her and toying with everything. So, but I like how they don't feel like they have to overdo the explanation and give it all away, and like we said, the success of the movie might enable them then to do something and give a little backstory or broaden the explanation, and that's fine. Because you shouldn't try to cram 3 movies worth of material into one movie just because you think that might be your only chance to. Be confident in your story and make it the best you can, and then hopefully you have a chance to expand upon that. But the movie to me was a blast. It was fun. It was it was intense. It had some very tense moments that had you kind of on the edge of your seat. It had a little, some scenes where you kind of cringe, some scenes where you kind of jump. The scene with the one boyfriend and kissing the dog. Oh my
Yeah.
lord, that was something else. And so it had a little blood, enough of that intenseness. Some great acting, some very realistic portrayals. I feel. I just feel like, I feel like this movie hit it on all cylinders for what it was.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you said is very true. It hit on all cylinders. You know what I mean? This was not a high budget movie. You know what I mean? It wasn't your typical big studio production. I think that's the big thing to take away from this movie is that this is not your stereotypical high budget, high cast list. You got all these huge names in it. Truthfully, this is what I would consider it's the upper echelons of low budget, but it is relatively a low budget movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously it isn't, I made this in my backyard with $25, but this is, in an industry of multi-million dollar, productions. I made this on a lower, level of that budget. So, take that for what you will. But like you said, it was hitting on all cylinders. It checked off all the boxes. It was just an overall fun film. All of my complaints about this movie, I think I can't even really think of any substantial complaint other than I really wish that they would have said more about the hand. But even then, it's like, is that really even a complaint? Because the mystery of the hand made the story even better. But like you
Yeah.
said, also, they didn't have to shove everything into one film to make it good. They gave you enough information to make you want more, which I think is hopefully the goal.
Yeah, yeah, like I said, and that works for me, right? The way they do that. Now, I can understand that there might be some people who would want a little more to it, or maybe a little more explanation on the ending. I was fine with the way the ending portrayed and the way it left it kind of kind of that gasp and kind of murky almost. Not, what happened, she died, but they didn't over explain it. I could understand where some people might have wanted a little more clarity in it, per se. But so I could see where with some people maybe that won't connect on that. But overall, like I said, I just think it's a very enjoyable movie. Um, and I think, I mean, I'm thinking so far this year, this is a top 5 movie for me,
Yeah,
so far. So I really, really enjoyed it. I think it's a movie that I would definitely rewatch again in the future.
yeah, absolutely.
So let's get on to ranking it, Ike. We'll let you rank it first because I typically go first. So out of 5 screams, what are you giving Talk to Me?
Yeah. So I immediately when I was out of the movie, my initial ranking was 4. All right, and I'm not saying that this isn't a great movie, but then I started thinking about what other movies have I ranked as a 4, and how does this movie compare to what I've ranked as a 4 before. So I couldn't quite give it a 4, but I was not going to give it a 3, so I'm going in the middle, 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, that is exactly where I'm at. That's initially that's right where I hit, right, 3.5. I thought, oh, this is better than a 3 for me, but not quite a 4. While it is fresh, while it is original, I don't think it's that groundbreaking or that it's seeing spirits in a medium is and using objects to see them that's not like it's never been done before. So I was kind of the same way. I didn't feel like it was quite a 4 or better movie, even though I greatly enjoyed it. But I thought it was above a middle of the run 3 for me. So I agree. So a consensus 3.5 screams out of 5 for Talk to Me. Again, it is again that's a solid 3.5 though. That's kind of an understated 3.5. It's a very very enjoyable movie to watch. I can't recommend it enough. And like we said earlier, next episode, we're going to be reviewing Death Metal. It is available on video on demand or Tubi. You can visit deathmetalhorrormovie.com for more information on the movie, some information on the cast and the makers of that. And I believe there's a little information on some of their other projects and different things that they've worked on. So go check them out. Like I said, it's for free on Tubi, so go watch it before we review it so you can follow along and give talk back to us, talk to your device and give us your thoughts. Anyway, so next episode it will be Death Metal. So Ike, before we close it out and get out of here, anything you want to throw in?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you watch this movie, Talk to Me, right, and you go to a party in real life, and people are playing with a Ouija board, or somebody pulls out a fucking ceramic hand out of their backpack, I think it would be pretty self-explanatory to not do it. But just in case you need an actual warning, it would probably not be a good idea to touch a ceramic hand that is supposedly the hand of a medium. I just don't do it, man. You know what I mean? It's like what they say with drugs, not even once. But yeah, that was also another thing about the movie. I was like, man, probably shouldn't touch that hand. I probably wouldn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because I'm a little skeptical when it comes to that shit. I'd be like, look, I don't want to get possessed by a demon. But just in case any of the people out there need encouragement from me to not do it, don't do it.
Yeah, I watched this movie, and multiple times while watching this movie, I thought to myself, man, I hope they make like a replica prop thing of that hand to purchase because I want one of those sitting on my shelf. I thought it's so cool looking, and it's from that movie. I thought, man, I hope that thing gets merchandised by somebody because I
Yeah,
want one.
me too.
So, all right, well there you have it. Talk to Me, 3.5 out of 5 on us. Highly recommended. Next episode, we're reviewing Death Metal. Again, thank you very much for the Blu-rays that the maker sent us. We're very appreciative of that. So, until next episode, make sure you subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. Give us a rating and review that helps us in those algorithms, helps us be found by other people that listen to other similar podcasts. So help us out with that. Make sure you follow us on all the social media platforms that we mentioned earlier. And until next episode, wherever you go and whatever you do, be good, be safe, and have many pleasant nightmares.